I've titled my lecture The Wonderful Alinker because sometimes when I come home after a walk, I say, oh, you're so wonderful, because it really makes a difference for me. So what is it? It's a walking tricycle. There's no pedals, no motor. And like a Model T Ford, it comes in one color. Luckily, it's not black. It's bright yellow, as you saw from my picture. So you mount it from the back. That's why you have that small wheel at the back. And generally, the seat is low enough that you can lift, you can hold on to the handlebars, you can lift one leg maybe 3 or 4 inches off the ground, and essentially slide the bike underneath you. And then you just walk. So I have a video, which I will show you. Okay,
I'm Jean. Today I'm reviewing the Alinker walking bike. The Alinker is designed to assist one to walk and exercise with little weight on the legs. It allows me to walk around the neighborhood, getting out and about in the fresh air. I also use it at the shopping malls to avoid numbness in my legs and getting fatigued during lengthy walks. Unfortunately, it doesn't come with a place to put shopping or my handbag. However, I think I can fit a bicycle shopping basket on it. Like other mobility devices, such as wheelchairs, it can be a bit too wide to get through some shopping aisles, but it is fine in most places. It is easy to transport as it folds up and the 2 front wheels detach as in a wheelchair. When I'm using the Alinker, I'm happy to be at the same height as those walking beside me, and I feel I get a good workout from it. And if my legs get tired, I find it best to just rest one foot and push with the other. If you're not used to riding a bike or scooter though, it might not be the best fit for you, or you might require some extra assistance. It's always best to give it a
So I'm stopping it there just because it gives you an idea of how it runs. And we'll go back to my presentation. So who invented it? Well, I'm proud that it's a woman that invented it, Barbara Alink, or BE, as she's also always called. And she designed it because she was out walking with her mother, and they saw some elderly people walking with walkers or with different kinds of scooters. And her mother said, over my dead body, will I ever use one of those? So B decided she was going to design something that looked a little sexier than a walker, and in many ways would be easier to use. She's originally from the Netherlands. She spent some time in Afghanistan. I'm not sure what she was doing. And she now lives in Canada, in Vancouver. The Alinker company is almost 10 years old. On August 16th, it will be their 10th anniversary of the incorporation. It was incorporated in Vancouver, BC, but they only started marketing the Alinker about 4 years later. And there's more than 5,000 have been sold worldwide. So it's still fairly rare to see them. And I often get the comment, oh, I've never seen one of those. So who is it suitable for? You have to have some control over your legs. Somebody that's completely paraplegic couldn't use it. You need to be able to lift your one leg a little bit while standing on the other leg and using support from the handlebars if you need it. You also need to be aware and cognizant of your surroundings. You need to know where you're going, how to be aware of traffic, and so on. And you have to know your limitations in order not to overdo it or to be unsafe. I mean, you don't want to get out on a long walk and decide, I can't get home. The individual experiences vary. The people that have bought them so far have a variety of different conditions, and that can affect their ability to use it. Some people love it from the first time they try it. That was my case. Others find they really have to take time to get used to it. First, they might be using muscles that they haven't used in a long time. And also, for the North American tushes, the seat is extremely hard. And people that aren't used to riding performance bikes have a tough time. Some people find it just doesn't suit them. And that could be a factor of their condition, but it could also be that their location makes it very difficult for them to use the Alinker. So riding indoors on a track or in a shopping mall is easier than outdoors. You've got a nice smooth floor. Outdoors, you have to be a little more careful. And if you're on smooth pavement, it's nicer than Montreal sidewalks, at least, which tend to be a bit lumpy, or rougher pavement. Outdoors has hills. And even a gentle hill can require more effort than riding on a flat surface. Of course, you get the bonus when you come back down the hill. It's a lot easier to do so. I've ridden on gravel and grass, and it's not too much extra effort. It really gravel, it depends on how it's laid down and so on. In grass, you'll obviously have to be careful of holes and things like that. It's very stable because of the three wheels, but it can tip. And I belong to a Facebook group called the Alinker Family, and I asked the question, how many people have tipped their Alinkers? And usually what happens is you try to take a turn too quickly and too sharply. You hit a hole or a curb edge, and sometimes you're simply going too fast and whoops. I haven't tipped mine, but I'm very cautious, especially navigating around people's recycling bins that get left in the middle of the sidewalk. Some of the pros, it provides exercise. You're using your legs, so you're getting that exercise. You're almost at standing height, so it's easier to interact with other people than it is if you're sitting in a wheelchair. It's very easy to stop and rest. So if you get tired, stop, and you're sitting. You can use one leg and keep the other one up on the frame. You can also steer with one arm. So somebody that has problems, weaknesses, or say a stroke, somebody that's had a stroke and hasn't got full use of an arm could use it. It's also very robust and well built. The cons. It's expensive, but I would say it's worth every penny. At the moment in Canada, it's $3,347 plus shipping, and I can't remember how much that was. You contrast that to walkers that can run up to $400, or wheelchairs, $500. The electrified things, wheelchairs and scooters, can go up to 7,000. And if you want a really high-end bike, you can go up to 7,000, 10,000. So it's relative. Unfortunately, at the moment, it's not covered by medical insurance, although B is trying to get companies to be willing to pay. You have to put air in your tires periodically, and periodically doesn't mean every 6 months. It means maybe once a week or once every couple of weeks. I already mentioned the seat is hard and hard to get used to. Another inconvenience, you really have to have the right sized Alinker. They do come in sizes. I'll talk about that in a minute. And it may require persistence. It takes a while to get used to the seat. It takes a bit of time to get used to what to expect when you do certain things on it. So one caution I'd say, because I was reading about somebody's problems with hers. If you're thinking about buying, you have to think where you're going to walk and ride. If there are too many hills, it can be a problem. Westmount 1 is located at the top of Côte St. Luc Road, right near where it goes into the boulevard. The only way I'd ride around there, I'd be either going downhill or uphill, and I couldn't. If you live somewhere where there's no sidewalks or bike paths, is it going to be safe to ride in the street? If you're living where the gravel roads, it's going to be harder to ride there. It's doable, but it's going to be harder. And if there's too much traffic in your area and you're not riding on sidewalks, that might be something to consider. There are some people that just keep theirs in their car and go to places where they know they can ride safely and comfortably. As I mentioned, you have to have the right size. They come in 3 sizes, small, medium, and large, and they've just come out with a smaller version called the Happy Small. The thing is, the small really fits somebody that's about my height. I'm about 5'3". And I have my seat at the lowest position of the standard seat. So the Happy Small would fit people that are shorter than that. Critical measurement is your inseam. So what you do is you stick a book in your crotch and you measure from there to the floor. And then you consult the chart on the Alinker website to find where you fall. I tried to measure my inseam myself, but I wasn't very confident about how accurate it was. And I was right at the minimum for the small. So I arranged a test drive one at the Liquid Gym in Ottawa. And I found that I fit with the seat in its lowest position, which is very convenient when you take the seat out and put it back in, because you don't have to fiddle with the height. Well, within 5 minutes of my test drive, I knew I wanted to buy one. And I bought it in August of 2020. Now, the sizes, there's a bit of a funny story, because B is 5'11", and being from the Netherlands, she thought this was sort of an average height. Well, North American women range a lot. So I don't even think they have many large for sale these days. So this is a diagram from the website. You have handlebars, a handbrake that brakes on the back wheel. It's not the strongest brake in the world, but it does hold the bike steady when you get off and on. When you're riding, you tend to use your feet to brake more than the handbrake. The seat has a quick release, so it's very easy to take the seat off. The front wheels are pneumatic tires, and they pop off very easily, as you saw in that video that I showed you. These two hook-like things are just a rest for when you fold it up. And then the small wheel in the back. So get on from the back. So you can adjust your seat height. You can adjust the tilt of the seat. You can adjust the handlebar position. But the seat tends to be the main source of complaints because it's not very comfortable. People have found that a gel seat cover or with padded bike shorts can help. I tried a gel seat cover, but it just added a little bit of height to the seat. And I found I didn't feel like my legs were bent enough to ride safely. What about different seats? Some of the wider seats aren't a good idea because they're harder to get on. Okay, you can't just slip on from the back. You would have to swing your leg over. And it also, depending on the shape of the seat, it could interfere with your stride. So they're really not recommending, although I've seen one seat recently that looks like it might be a little more comfortable. The wheels, the front wheels and the original back wheel have pneumatic tires with tubes. That means you can end up getting flats. Some people find it difficult to put air in the tires. I bought an electric tire inflator and I find it relatively easy to use, but it's taken a little bit of practice to get really comfortable using it. And the tire pressure is very important. It rides much easier when the tires are well inflated. I had a flat on the original back wheels, and it was sort of an unexpected flat. I hadn't been riding much in the winter of 2020, 2021. And one day I decided, oh, I'll stick it in the car and I'll go to Angrigno and look around the mall. So I hadn't been riding for a while. And all the time I was in the mall, it just didn't feel right. It felt like my legs had grown longer or something. And it was only the next day when I went to look at it in the car, it was still in the car, I discovered the back wheel was flat and I couldn't blow it up, or I could blow it up, but it wouldn't retain the air. So I think what the problem was is the manual gives the wrong pressure for the back tire. So it was underinflated. And I'm pretty heavy. And I think I essentially squished the tire enough to blow it out, the tube out. So I decided I didn't want to go around with a wheel that would blow out easily. So I looked for a non-pneumatic wheel. And this is what I came up with. A scooter wheel for adult scooters. And there it is on my bike. And I've had this now for over a year. and it's still in pretty good shape. So, and it solves the problem of that going flat. Touch wood, I haven't had the front wheels go flat yet. Alinker has since come out with a solid rear wheel, but they're not standard equipment. What it is it has a rubber tire with holes in it. So it is a bit more bouncy than the scooter wheel. It's also not available at the moment, and it costs about $100. In contrast, my scooter wheels were only $35, and I have a spare. So you can add things to our Alinkers, and most people add some kind of accessories, a basket, phone holder, mirrors, cup holders, horns. This is one of the common baskets that people use. It has a quick release mechanism, so you can take it off fairly easily, and it has a handle so you can carry it. I didn't go with that design because I was in a hurry and I found what I wanted at Canadian Tire. It's just a plastic wicker type basket, and it just hooks on to the handlebars. And you can see I have a very high-tech cup holder. That's a tray from McDonald's for carrying hot drinks. And it works. I did put mirrors on. I have two little guys like this, one on each side. I don't always use them, but they do come in handy. And I also put an app on my phone called Map My Run to keep track of where I've been. So what the output is a trace of where I've been, the total distance, how long it took, and the average pace. Now this is a little bit out of whack because I certainly was walking faster than that, but I had been probably to New Hope for a chair yoga class, and I didn't turn my phone off. I didn't turn my run off while I was doing yoga. So it's just giving me the distance, but the time and pace is not very accurate. Generally, I think I'm still walking slower than the average pace of somebody walking normally, but I'm walking a lot faster than I do on my own 2 feet. I even have skis. These are stroller skis, and I've only actually used them a couple of times because you have to go on a groomed trail where it's going to be fairly solid with them. So I don't have a really good feel of how easy or hard they are to use, but I did take them out a couple of times last winter. Try to get out more this winter. As I mentioned, I belong to a Facebook group called Alinker Family. It's a good place to get advice and to see other users. And many of us have named our Alinkers. Examples: Alley-oop, Bat-bite, Big Bird, Junkie, Seabiscuit, and so on. Lots of variety. And mine I call Matilda. And it's after that song by Harry Belafonte as opposed to Waltzing Matilda. I discovered recently that another user has also named hers Matilda. To transport, it can be folded up and put in the trunk or the back seat. If you take the wheels off and the seat off, it makes it lighter. And depending on your vehicle, you might have to take off the handlebars. I have a video of how this is done, and I will show that now. And let's see. Okay.
Okay, I finished my ride. Now I'm going to disassemble it.
The sound is very quiet, but he's not really saying anything.
Just hold it up, put it on a stand. Second, you take the seat off. I'm doing the clamp. Put that on the ground. Next, you loosen your handlebars. I'm going to get a symbol here. You can take them off. Put them on the frame, and you take off the wheels. I take it up, but I think you should just pivot it up on the frame of the car. The frame is actually quite small. The trunk. Put the wheels in. Away I go.
And that's how I put mine in my car. I don't find it terribly difficult because when you take off the wheels and the seat, the frame is not terribly heavy. It can be a bit of a pain to have to take the handlebars off and on. And probably about 30% of the time when I put them back on, I don't get them quite right. So then I have to readjust after a few minutes. People do fly with them. They actually ride to the gate and gate check like they would do a stroller. People have traveled by train, and I would guess you could take it on an intercity bus if such things still exist, by folding it and stowing it in the luggage compartment. In city buses and on the metro, it would be treated like a wheelchair, but I'm not sure I can take it on the Montreal Transit because according to the website, it has to be narrower than 26 inches and the front wheels are 30 inches. I have to look into that because I know people in other cities take it on public transit. So a little bit more about my own experiences. Why did I get it? Well, I don't really have anything super wrong with me. I'm just old, fat, and arthritic. Although I can walk unaided, I get short of breath and I get sore. And when I get sore, everything tends to seize up and I don't walk, I start walking like I'm drunk. And I tire very rapidly when I'm walking. The Alinker brings me joy almost every time I go out, from quick trips to the CLSC, which is just about 400 meters from my house, and longer walks in my neighborhood or parks. I've had Matilda for almost 2 years now, 2 years coming up fairly soon. This is how it looks when it arrives. It's a big box and it's all wrapped up. And it takes a little bit of time to put together, but it's not difficult. As I say, it was very easy to put together. My first trips were fairly short. I rode on city sidewalks and looking back at my notes, and the longest trip I took the first few times was about 1 kilometer. And I discovered that NDG in my neighborhood is hillier than it looks. So often when I plan my walks, I'll try to go uphill on my way out when I'm fresh, and then coming home gets easier. Mostly they're gentle slopes, although I've been in a couple of places that weren't so gentle. And I use my feet to brake to control my speed. Now this is walking on Monkland. One of the delights of having my Alinkers, it's easy for me to walk to stores now. I can go to Dollarama with a walk of about 2 kilometers. There's a nice cafe not far. Premier Moisson on Gerard and Monkland is a very pleasant walk, and I get coffee and a croissant and a loaf of bread as reward. I have a Provigo, a Metro, and Pharmaprix, and I guess a Jean Coutu that are fairly close, and a really good bakery called La Minerie Urbaine. And they even have a pickup window, which is nice because then I don't have to go inside. And I can order online. So I just go and ask them for my order. I try to go to parks now and then. This is René Lévesque Park, which is where the Lachine Canal connects to the river. So here I'm on the canal side. And then Parc des Rapides is a very pretty park where you can look out at the Lachine Rapids. When there's no snow or ice, Matilda stays in my basement. So you can see my messy basement. This is my work area. This is my tire inflator, some Allen keys to undo the handlebars or tighten things on the seat and the wheels, etc. I would use these periodically. They're hemostats. They're handy if I get the valve cap on too tight on the valve to put the air in. In the winter, I bring her upstairs. I come in through the front of my house and I keep her in my living room. I've got this peddler, which is one of these things you're supposed to put under your desk and you can exercise your legs. Well, it is very awkward under my desk because I hit my knees. So I've tried it under Matilda and it works very nicely. But like a lot of exercise stuff, it doesn't get as much use as it should. But it's convenient there. And why? Why do I bring her into my living room? It's actually easier to take her up and down my front steps. I only have 3 steps. Than to risk slipping on my driveway, which can be very icy in the winter. In which some winters needs a load of gravel. So this is one of my trips on skis. This is Angrignot Park. This is an icy path in Benny Park. I really did this. I wasn't on skis. I was just using the wheels. But I wanted to see how she behaved on ice like this. And there was sand on it, so I could get a grip with my feet. Sidewalks in Montreal during the winter. When they're like this, it's really no problem riding. The only time I wouldn't ride is right after a snowstorm when there might be snow piled up at the intersections. So I would have trouble crossing. But I did ride a fair amount this past winter. And they put a lot of gravel on the sidewalks this past winter, so it was pretty good riding. In March, I went to the Botanical Gardens, and I'd like to do this sometimes again soon. But when I was in the parking lot, I realized that if I had walked to the pay station and then back to my car, which was a fair distance from the pay station, I would have been exhausted. With the Alinker, I was able to walk all through the greenhouses, and I love the one with the cacti. And I walked outside as well. Of course, in March, there wasn't very much vegetation to see, but it was a beautiful day, not super cold or windy or anything. So it was a really nice day for me. When I'm out walking, I usually get comments. Pretty much all have been positive. And a lot of people say they've never seen one before. I know there are at least 2 more in Montreal, but I haven't run into anybody yet with them. And very recently, I decided I was going to try a fitness class at the NDG Sports Center. And it turns out this is the most demanding senior class I've ever attended. I mean, I've attended a lot. I was going to the YMCA before the pandemic, and I've done some other places. This instructor works you practically to death. And I've been doing most of the class on my Alinker. It's easier on my knees. And also he does a lot of balance positions. Especially yesterday, it was a half hour of balancing. So I do what he does, but I just do it on the Alinker. So somebody was nice and took a short video of me, and I've edited it further. So this isn't an actual class. I'm just demonstrating some of the moves. Okay, is that going to start on its own? Let's see. There we go. Wait. The grin on my face is essentially how I feel during most of the class. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'll ask you what your questions are.